Alright, let's go ahead and introduce our first player here. At the bottom left, we got our red Protoss player playing for the team of Alpha X. He is the one, the only, Zoun. And spawn here at the top right, we got our blue Zerg playing for the team of Prep Esports. Make some noise for BYUL. Alrighty, so I just got word from Vitamin that he will be on in a second, so it looks like we will have at least a co-caster for the second game. But for now, for the first game, we will be soloing it. Hopefully, it isn't too horrible. I'm not gonna lie, solo casting is a little bit tough. Not having that second person to bounce off of ideas and kind of converse with. It's a little bit difficult, but very doable. So yeah, so basically we do have ourselves a PVZ here to start off on Glittering Ashes. Now already we do see Zoun blocking off that natural, what would be the normal natural of BYUL. So BYUL gonna go ahead and plant down his second hatchery at the natural dirt base location. But of course this has been kind of the norm these days in PvZ, where Protoss has sent out that early probe to block off that natural. And of course the drones have just a little bit extra long distance to travel from the main base. So it kind of disrupts the income collection just a little bit. But of course you do see a Stargate coming out of Zoun. And I wouldn't expect anything different because this map does really cater to air tech. And the question is, will he go for maybe Void Rays to start off, or maybe some Oracles? And if so, how many before he transitions? Or if he does transition to ground, or whether he will stick to air. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and dive in here just to check out what's happening and do a little bit of harassment, of course. Nice little save there on the drones. Not quite there on that one drone. Unfortunately, does loses the adept. But I believe a link got through here, if I'm not mistaken. And did see the Stargate. Yeah, does see the Stargate. Does see the Void Ray as well making. So as you can see, sending back that Overlord immediately, making sure that he has a little bit of chance to survive. However, that Void Ray is going to go ahead and cache this. Oh, actually just changes directory. Unfortunately for Zoun, should have been able to get a free Overlord, but you know what? Sometimes StarCraft 2 is a game of luck. And looks like that lucky Overlord will survive to tell the story of how he survived this Zerg versus Protoss war. However, in the meantime, this Oracle will go ahead and dive in here. Let's see how many drones he can get. Now, the Spore Crawler is a little tad to the left side, so some of these drones on the right side will go ahead and kind of get zapped away. In the meantime, Zoun doing some multiple prong attacks with these two adepts as well as the Oracle. So far, only 6 going down. Not too shabby, I mean, considering, but I'm sure he probably would have wanted, you know, a little bit less drones killed. But at the very least, he did kill off those 2 adepts. So BYUL, let's go ahead and take a look. Oh, 7 drones, 7 lings for 3 adepts. However, of course, this Oracle is still alive, so can still get additional drone kills. In the meantime, though, Zoun is not fully committed to this. He does have a third. And we'll be transitioning into Stargate play a little bit. Now, this is not going to be like total air tech play, because he is throwing down that robo facility as well as the Twilight Council. I'm guessing he might want to go for some disruptors, because there's always that chance, right, that Zerg will go for that queen walk. So far, we do only have 6 queens, so it doesn't look like a queen walk is imminent in the near future. In fact, BYUL is going for that 4th base instead, so he's going to go ahead and try to macro through all these harassment. But of course, Zoun will be building up those void ray counts, and if those queens are not in position, those void rays can charge up and kill off the hatchery in the blink of an eye. Alright, in the meantime, it looks like BYUL has selected to go for that Spire tech to help counter this airplay of Zoun. Usually, I'm not a fan of the Spire play. However, I think it's going to be okay-ish, because Zoun is not going to be fully committed to this airplay. So he's not going for like all-out Void Rays or something crazy like that. He is going to keep a limited amount of Void Rays out in the field while he transitioned into disruptors, it looks like, as that robotics bay did just finish in the production tab. And we should see disruptors coming producing very soon. Oh, looks like I just caught the tail end of that Oracle dying. But a little bit of a miss micro there by Zoun. Does not babysit it well enough, so we'll lose that. I'm sure he would have loved it, because, you know, Oracles can really, I mean, they're great in the early game, but they're also great in the mid and late game. I mean, those revelations, those stasis wards that they can place, quite useful throughout the whole game. So I'm sure he would have loved to save that Oracle, but still not the end of the world, of course. All right, I think Zoun, yeah, he sees the Spire play with the Observer, and look at that, he immediately mixes Phoenixes as he's anticipating Mutalisk. Now, of course, when the Zerg player does have Spire, it's very difficult to determine whether that Zerg player is going for Mutalisk or Corruptors, but looks like he did guess correctly, as Mutalisks are out in the field. However, these cans are not quite done yet, so these probes are gonna go ahead and get sniped down. Phoenixes will go ahead and give chase while these Void Rays retreat. But 6 probes going down, so that kind of evens up the worker count loss a little bit. As you can see, 8 drones going down throughout this game, but 7 going down for Zoun himself. Now, of course, those majority of those drones did get killed in the early game, versus Zoun, who lost a majority of his probes in the mid game, and it's a little bit more detrimental for the Zerg to lose the workers in the early game, of course, compared to Zoun. Alright, looks like Zoun is going to go ahead and kind of stabilize. Usually when the Protoss get caught off guard with a Mutalisk, it gets really ugly. However, because Zoun was able to scout those Mutalisks, he was able to prepare, and hasn't really lost too much to these Mutalisks. So these Mutalisks are going to kind of be useless for the time being. Just kind of chilling at home, so we'll see if BYUL can kind of find an opening somehow. However, Zoun does recognize that there is not any more Mutalisks being made, so he has actually smartly stopped that Phoenix production, and has actually amounted to a very scary ground force. A lot of Archons, disruptors, some disruptors here as well, looking to attack. And attacking at the same time that charge is finishing. So a nice little bit of timing there, lining up with his upgrades. We'll go ahead and attack this 12 o'clock base. BYUL doesn't quite have enough. We'll go ahead and stack it for the time being. Baneling's gonna go ahead and connect with a lot of these charge lot in the front. So some nice connections there. Some nice ducks there on those disruptors, so those disruptors will become useless and will go down. Usually you want, as a Protoss, to have a couple of them because Vipers are a thing for the Zerg. Some of these infestors does get taken out in the front, but it looks like BYUL has amassed enough forces. The Ultralisk did come out just in the nick of time and forces a recall out of Zoun, and smartly so, because really Zoun ground force, after those charge lot were evaporated by those bangs, it didn't really have a lot. You mainly had Archons, which doesn't do the best against Ultralisk, and all the disruptors of course got taken out by the Vipers. So yeah, I think that was a really smart play there by Zoun, or else he would have lost all his Protoss forces, the Archons. And those Archons are really important because those Archons can help tank those Banelings that can eventually... I mean, let's look at here. There's only 2 Banelings out in the field, but of course there's always that chance that BYUL will be making more Banelings later on. But in the meantime, Zoun gonna go ahead and just sit back, macro, and actually transition into carriers, which is not the worst idea. I mean, Ultralisk doesn't shoot up in the air. Of course, BYUL is gonna go ahead and throw down a second Spire, so gonna go ahead and really hit hard on those air upgrades for those Corruptors to help counter the carrier play of Zoun. Even the Mama ship being added in as well. So of course Vipers with those Corruptors, maybe with some Spore Callers and Infestors combination, I think does really help out BYUL in dealing with what Zoun is eventually kind of building up to. Alright, I do like this kind of maneuver here by Zoun. He's not actually committing in because he's not maxed. Oh, well, he is maxed out, but he doesn't have a huge gas bank yet. You want to make sure that you at least have a little bit of a gas bank before moving out, because if you do lose the fight, the big huge fight, you want to at least kind of replenish your army. But he just moved a little bit closer to just clear out the creep, recede the creep a little bit, so that if he does try to retreat, that it's just a little bit harder for BYUL to give chase. Alright, looks like the Mama ship is going to go ahead and come out here. Let's see, where is that Mama ship? There we go. Look at how beautiful that guy is. Or, sorry, not guy. That gal is. With all its beauty and prismatic alignment. Now, I know that upgrade is for the War Prism, but it just sounds... the mothership sounds like it has the kind of artistic upgrade name of some sort. I don't know what I'm talking about, but anyhow, looks like Zoun is going to go ahead and finally send out that 4 Zealot hit squad into the left side. I'm not sure if it's going to be quite enough yet. Oh wait, actually maybe it will. Oh, just barely. 7 health on that hatchery, so just barely saves it. In the meantime, Phoenixes will come into the main base, catches a nice full energy Viper there. Nice find. But the big main fight is here on the left side at the 12 o'clock base. I think the statue will finally go down, as it only has 7 hit points there to remain. In the meantime, these Phoenixes will go ahead and get sacrificed, and now I think this is actually okay. I mean, really those Phoenixes were mainly to defend against those Mutalisk, and at this stage the carriers themselves can kind of defend it, along with the Archons and the Storms from the High Templar. So really you want to kind of replace those Phoenixes with some more useful units, like more carriers or something. Because at this stage where both players are maxed out, it all comes down to your army composition. You want to make sure that you have the best army composition during that huge engagement that will eventually come. Alright, this small Ling squad will eventually get cleaned up. A couple of probes going down, of course, but you know, he was still pretty healthy in the probe count, so don't think he minds it. Replacing those probes with some additional units, not too bad as well. Throwing down 3 Stargates to help with that kind of replenishment of his army after that huge fight. Both players actually do have a huge bank in terms of minerals and gas, so I don't think this game will end in the next big fight, the next big battle. I think it's probably going to take maybe 2 total or 3 total if both these players are still kind of banking at in a few minutes or so. Alright, here we go. We do have 5 Ultralisks, 3 Broodlords, 6 Vipers. Wow, that is quite a lot of Vipers, I gotta say. Normally, you do see Zerg go with like maybe, I don't know, like 3 to 4, maybe 5 Vipers, but looks like BYUL is gonna go ahead and try to make sure he has enough Vipers to help with the spell casting, because sometimes you do see the Vipers, like maybe 1 or 2 Vipers, just kind of move forward and gets killed automatically. And also he's got to, yeah, keep in mind there are those High Templars underneath the Process army that can kind of feedback those Vipers, so having some additional Vipers with energy can help out, so that if you do get feedbacked at the very least, you can have additional energy for spell casting, whether it's parasitic bombs or blinding clouds or abducts. So we shall see how this next huge engagement goes, because it's coming, guys. Eventually it's coming. These both of these armies are going to clash at some point. Both of these players are still playing passive, but I mean, the maps are slowly but surely getting split into half. There are a couple of mining bases still left on the top left and the bottom right, but eventually these players will feel confident enough to attack into one another. Alright, looks like both players are kind of trading out some of these ground units here and there. It seems like they're kind of really focusing on the air, and the air army. Whether it's the Broodlords and Corruptors and Vipers, or whether it's Carriers, Tempests, and Mama Ship. So, of course, you know, those ground units will not scale too well during the big fight. So, smart idea to just kind of trade them away. Now, at this stage, I think with the bank and with the amount of bases that these players have, I would love to see BYUL just throw down a bunch of Spore Crawlers, and Zoun just throw down a bunch of cannons and shield batteries in the middle of the map. And it looks like that's exactly what Zoun is planning to do, as he is throwing down some pylons out here in the middle, because if you can kind of do that slow push with those cannons and shield batteries, then it makes it difficult for the Zerg player to engage. While on the Zerg side, if you can kind of fight underneath all those Spore Crawlers, then all those Interceptors can really kind of all those Spore Crawlers can kind of snipe down those Interceptors and kind of take some of Get counts away. Let's take a look at the resources lost tab here. A little bit more here lost for the Protoss in terms of resources. But all in all, pretty even, I would say. Oh, looks like it has evened up just a little bit here more as some of these dragging Zerg units get sniped out. Mortars doing as much damage as they can before they eventually die. But of course, those broodlords, we'll go ahead and clean them up. You know, I gotta say, while we're into the 22nd minute mark, Zoun has really done a nice job with the creep management. I mean, look at the creep. It should be covered like half to 3/4 right now, but Zoun has been very diligent in keeping up with sniping off those creeps, those creep tumors. So gotta hand it to him. He has done really nicely on that. And of course that makes it so that, you know, things like the queens can't really walk across the map and engage into the fight. Let's take a look at the units lost tab here. Oh, actually, let's hold that. And looks like Zoun is looking to engage. And a lot of the units here are coming and traveling back into the left side. Meanwhile, these mules are still being pesky. Of course, those mules are really doesn't have much use now at this stage, besides just harassment. And there's really nothing Zoun can do because a lot of his army is kind of grouped up into this one Protoss ball. There's the Phoenixes were, of course, killed off earlier on, and Zoun is maxed out, so he can't really warp in any like stalkers to help defend. So we'll actually go ahead and actually fly his entire army back here to defend. In the meantime, yep, it's getting to that stage where just gonna go ahead and trade out probes. Probes for better army, for more army. And of course drones for more as well. Although you should probably just turn those drones into like maybe spores or spines instead. Because you just don't want to like sack those drones. I mean, you have a lot of minerals, right? Got like 5.5k minerals, might as well just turn them into spores or spines. Peace FGC in the live chat saying Zoun just wants one big fight, and I think you are correct, my friend. I mean, his army is kind of built geared towards one huge engagement, just like a 200 versus 200 army kind of fight. And it's really going to come down to the spellcasting, the spellcasting micro by these two players. I mean, on the one side we do have the High Templars with the Storm, those disruptors, of course, and then the Mothership. Of course, the Oracles if he wants to revelate. But on the BYUL side, he has the Infestors for those Fungos, those Vipers for those Parasitic Bombs. And here we go. Queens also needs to transfuse these Broodlords, but looks like BYUL is fighting kind of at the home front of Zoun. He's kind of back into the where all these shield batteries and cannons are. I'm not sure if BYUL wants to engage here. There's not a lot of spore crawlers as well to help defend, and oh my god, these storms so brutal. We'll go ahead and connect with all these corruptors. All these corruptors going down into orange and red life here, and BYUL is gonna have to back out. Now luckily, of course, he had a bank, but look at there. He just spent the majority of his bank into 12 Ultralisks, 12 Corruptors, and so BYUL is going to have to be careful not to go for another careless fight there. At the same time, Zoun also building a lot of his interceptors, using a lot of those minerals. So his entire mineral bank has evaporated. He does have 6k gas in the tank, but he's a bit more minerals. Of course, it's going to be a little bit more easier for him to replenish those minerals than, of course, gas. So not in the. I think he's okay. However, you know, he's got to keep mindful, or he has to be mindful of those interceptors being very costly in terms of minerals. Of course, they don't cost like a lot one by one, but you're talking about like 8 interceptors per carriers, kind of replenishing over and over, and that kind of adds up over time. Now, of course, you can use up those the entire gas bank on those Archons and High Templars, so I think he should be fine there. However, I'm a little bit worried for BYUL because he maxed out on 12 Ultralisks, which, I mean, Ultralisks are great. They're very beefy and tanky, but what are they going to do against that many carriers? I mean, yeah, they can be okay against Archons, but I mean, all these carriers are going to be unanswered for. Although, as I say that, there is actually 25 corruptors, so I guess not a bad count, but there are those storms. So he wants to probably engage with the Ultralisks on top of those High Templars, but those High Templars are on the high ground in the backside, being really safe. So these Ultralisks can't really reach them, which means these High Templars are going to go ahead and storm the bejesus out of these corruptors. Oh my goodness! Finally, the Ultralisks get on top of the High Templars, but those storms were so deadly. And now we have, let's see here, 1 corruptor left over versus 4 carriers and 3 tempests. Yeah, I mean, if BYUL had a bank right now, I would say that's okay. He can kind of max out on the corruptors and take out the rest of these carriers, but he only has enough for maybe a few corruptors. Only 3 corruptors in the production. Okay, he does have a bit more. Okay, there we go. So he is going to have 21 corruptors in total. I think that is going to be enough. Looks like Zoun is going to go ahead and add in some Void Rays to help against those corruptors, which, I mean, when you're in a low economy right now, like this, where you don't have that much of a bank, that is probably the best choice. Void Rays against those corruptors. Alright, now, funnily enough, with how this game has gone on, you would think that this map has been already mined out or close to being mined out, but actually there are 2 bases still left over here. One on the bottom right, one on the top left, right here, and right here. And it looks like BYUL is checking for those bases, making sure that Zoun isn't too greedy. But yeah, pretty much a lot of these bases are kind of being mined out right now. So let's go ahead and take a the income graph. Oh wow, actually Zoun has been pretty healthy throughout this whole game. Of course, he did get some nice drone kills in the early game, so they kind of set him up pretty nicely into the mid and into the late game here. Holy moly, 14 Void Rays, 4 carriers, and 3 Tempests versus the 2 Broodlords and the 24 Corruptors and 10 Ultralisks. Looks like BYUL is smartly adding in some Vipers as well. Those Vipers are going to be crucial to help against this air fleet of Zoun. However, it looks like those Vipers are not going to be in time yet, as Zoun has decided to get on top of this top right base, or actually mid right base. Looks like Zoun has gone back into those carrier production. So just kind of building up his air fleet once again. This Sky Toss army. BYUL though, he is. I'm liking what he's doing. He is actually going to go ahead and make some additional spore crawlers. However, the problem with that is his creep is actually quite terrible at the moment. And so, yeah, it's nice to have all those spore crawlers during the fight, but if the fight is back at the Zerg side of the base, then Zoun could just retreat back home and just kind of remake more army for the next fight. You want to be the one that's kind of having the creep spread it to the Protoss side of the base, then move your spore crawlers slowly, and you know, just kind of do that little slow push there where the Protoss can't really do nothing about it and he has to sacrifice his bases. But right now Zoun is just free to just take all the bases that he wants. Alright, looks like both players are just playing it a little bit defensively as they just want to make sure that they don't screw this next this next fight, because this next fight is probably going to be the last fight, as both of them are kind of nearing towards that that scenario where they don't have a lot of bases to mine and don't have a lot of minerals and gas banked up to just kind of remax out. This is probably going to be maybe one of the last times, if not the last times, that it will be maxed out. And here we go. Oh, looks like Zoun does have some High Templars in that Warp Prism, which is nicely done. He recognizes the fact that there are a lot of Ultralisks on the ground. He only has one Archon to tank for those High Templars, so he is smartly actually loaded up those High Templars into the Warp Prism. Now, of course, BYUL, if he does recognize this, he can kind of snipe out those that Warp Prism immediately, but usually that is really hard to do when you have like that many Void Rays and carriers underneath it, so, or I guess over it. And it's really hard to target fire it, so I really like this kind of strategy by Zoun to just save those High Templars and kind of put them into that Warp Prism. Now, it looks like both players are maxed out, but I gotta say I'm a little bit worried here for BYUL because he still doesn't have the creep moving towards the Protoss side. He's losing bases after bases, and that means that even if he does have a bank, right, he's not gonna have the larva to remax immediately. So he's got to be careful not to lose any more hatcheries, and it looks like he will go ahead and replenish those hatcheries by expanding towards the top left side. Looks like Zoun will take the bottom right side instead. I'm still favoring Zoun's position right now, but of course, you know, it really comes down, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, it's going to come down to the big fight, how they micro their units and their spellcaster units specifically. Oops. Alright, a little bit of a counterattack there. We'll force the recall, but Zoun still does have a lot of resources left over to remake those lost carriers. So it looks like Zoun can afford at this stage to lose a little bit here and there. BYUL, on the other hand, I gotta say he's probably got to be a little bit extra careful. Ooh, oh, nice feedback on one of those Vipers. Can he get another one? He's kind of really playing with a little bit of death there, as those Corruptors are quite near that Warp Prism. So he's gonna make sure not to overextend with that Warp Prism. Nice little funky play with the Warp Prism feedback on the Vipers, but We lose that Warp Prism to Corruptors then. That's a lot of gas down the drain. Alright, here we go. Once again, Zoun's gonna go ahead and snipe out another hatchery, and BYUL has absolutely no answer for it because he wants to stay behind those spore crawlers. Oh, actually, nice a duck there. Does get the Warp Prism with all the High Templars, so no more storms. However, the Mama ship does get off the time warp there, and oh man, there's just so much happening here. Parasitic Bomb does get a lot of these Void Rays down to yellow life. However, those carriers counts still standing tall, and it looks like, yeah, Zoun does have enough. Those Void Rays, just you know, even though they got Parasitic Bomb, they do replenish their shields. So, yo, once again losing another hatchery, and I don't know, it kind of feels like a slow death of some sort for our blue Zerg, because he's just losing bases after bases. All his minerals and gases are gone, so this is basically the army, his army that's left over. He doesn't have anything left. He's just got a bunch of Ultralists that is actually absolutely useless. Corruptors are going to be helpful, but there's no Vipers or Infestors to back them up. And Zoun is just slowly just lowering the supply of BYUL. Yeah, this air fleet is just, I think, too much for BYUL to handle. I think he overcommitted into those Ultralists, which have really not helped out in this late game. And yeah, there we have it. After 80, almost nearly 38 minutes, no, actually 39 minutes right now, it looks like Zoun will take the first game of this best of 3 series. Alrighty, here in game number 2 on 2000 Atmospheres. Let's go ahead and introduce our first player. Spawning at the bottom left, he's our blue Protoss, playing for Alpha X. Give it up for Zoun.
In the top right, coming back somewhat recently for Prep Esports, he's BYUL. Well, that first game certainly took a longer turn there. But like, it's interesting that BYUL does want to accept that late game scenario, because like he never really attempted to close it out any earlier. So yeah, interesting that he wants to go there, and well, in the end it just shows that Zoun has a little more experience, because well, after the first time the armies of those players clashed, it did look quite alright for BYUL, but I felt like he remaxed on a bit of a suboptimal remax. He never added on any Infestors again, which was kind of crucial, because Zoun was very Void Ray heavy. He went up to like 14 Void Rays at some point, and you just need those fungal parasitic bomb combination versus that. And yeah, with the slightly inferior remax, Zoun just took better fights from there on. But yeah, that first fight, if BYUL had played it a little bit more experience from there, certainly had a shot in that game.
Yeah. Ryo Mas in the live chat saying it was to deal with Archons and to tank the carriers. That's why Ultralisk was there. And yes, I do agree that Ultralists are really great at tanking the carriers and taking out the High Templars, but I think you don't need 12 or so Ultralists to do so. I think maybe, I don't know, like 6 or so. I think it's fine to take care of that. I think it would have served him better to get some more air tech, or maybe even infestors if it's not more corruptors. So I think he just overdid it on the Ultralist a bit, and I think, yeah, it was just like, really, it didn't serve any purpose once Zoun was able to just amass that air armada, and then also, of course, load up those High Templars into the War Prism to escape those Ultralists. So yeah, sometimes, you know, you want to wait to see what your opponent remaxes on before you actually commit. And sometimes you do see Zergs do that, where they lose a huge fight, but then they don't remake anything, and it's because they're just trying to wait to see what the Protoss is remaxing on before they commit into what they want to remax on.
It felt like a little bit of a, hey, I took a nice fight here, and I'm going to have the faster remix of the BYUL here, and then he just yeah, overdid it on the Ultralists. I agree, especially when it got to the point where Zoun was just ferrying his 4 High Templars in the War Prism. Then the only thing that you really used the Ultralist forwards for run-bys, and then there were towards the later stages of the game, there was really no point doing like bigger Ultralist run-bys anymore, because very few bases were being mined from. So you don't want to run-by, or at least not heavily committed run-bys onto bases that are also already pretty much mined out. But I think we have now reached the point where it's worth talking about this game at hand here.
Yeah, we do see 2 Stargates, so it looks like Zoun is going to go ahead and mass up those air army once again. By the way, Clear 2832 in the live chat asking, when is Ragnarok versus Ryung? That will be the next series after this. After this series concludes, we will go ahead and get into a Ryung versus Ragnarok. But in the meantime, we do have a best of 3 as Zoun is up 1-0. And are looking to secure the second win on this second game.
It looks like he's fine with taking it a little bit slower again, going for the same double Stargate. And air upgrade already on the way. Forge being added on to add static defense. So yeah, really up to BYUL how he wants to deal with this now. It doesn't look like he... well, he's obviously still building Queens. But he is going for that +1 melee upgrade. The lair is building, so no imminent queen walk. Yeah, last time he did just go for the spire when Mutas didn't really work out all that well for him. So curious to see how he approaches it this game.
Yeah. Now, we do see a little bit of deviation from the last game. Now, we did see Zoun open up with, Void Race mainly, but this time around, actually just sticking with only 4 Void Rays, and just going straight into Phoenixes, and this is without scouting any, like, Spire or anything. He's just going straight into Phoenixes. What do you think of this?
It's curious, isn't it? The Phoenixes, I mean, he isn't showing them yet, so maybe he's just 100% sure that out of BYUL's past games that he's going that way. And we do see the Spire being added on, but otherwise, at this stage of the game, after opening 4 Void Rays, the Phoenixes are a very curious choice, and I think the Ling on the Watchtower there saw a couple of Phoenixes flying over. Yeah, but at this point, I just have to assume that Zoun is just absolutely trying to blind counter BYUL here. And I'm not sure how well this is going to pay off, because yeah, this amount of Phoenix is going to, well, suck against anything else other than Mutas. So yeah, interesting choice, interesting gamble, I would say.
Yeah, now so far the Phoenixes hasn't really paid off for themselves, but it looks like we will finally go ahead and dive in here into the natural, get couple of drone kills.
I I mean, this is obviously something that you can do. This amount of Phoenix does not care about spot crawlers necessarily, especially with the standard 1 in each mineral line. So you can get in here, get a whole bunch of drones, get a whole bunch of overloads, possibly loses a Phoenix for it. But yeah, what are the Phoenix going to do now? They're out of energy. They've gotten 10 drone kills, which BYUL, at this stage of the game, 10 drones are not that significant because as a Zerk you just rebuilt that. Zoun is shooting up in that supply count because yeah, BYUL at this point is just sitting back, getting all the upgrades, getting Hive, retaining a very good drone count, but now the Void Race, yeah, and it made an attempt on that hatchery, but the Queens were in position. Yeah, so while BYUL is down in supply here, he has very good economy and can just pick and choose whichever unit composition he wants to go on from here, because there is no immediate attack out of Zoun. He's just started his first 3 carriers.
Yeah, it just seems like Zoun is kind of in the driver's seat. He's the one that's in control. BYUL though is trying to do a little bit of a cute bailing run by, but bailing doesn't even have speed. Oh no.
That could have been a whole lot worse for Zoun there. The wall of attempt didn't quite wall off the upper side of that base there, so well handled sniping those banelings before they could connect. But yeah, obviously there was no speed on the banelings, so not the toughest task.
Yeah. Looks like Zoun has decided to go and transition into high Templars once again, so kind of gearing towards maybe a similar type of army composition as the last game, while on BYUL side sticking with those corruptors as well. Now this time around, of course, hopefully he can kind of make sure to save all those infestors and vipers during that huge fight, because those are going to be really important. But oh, these carriers might, or these corruptors might be able to snipe off one. No, nope.
As long as this army is set under the shield barriers and cannons, I don't think BYUL can look for an engagement there. But well, he isn't looking for an engagement, right? He's still got a bunch of upgrades running, Ultraless Cavern, Greater Spire on the way. So both players just very much still getting to the point where they want to be at to fight, and it's looking like a bit of a gentleman's agreement here. Other than those Phoenixes killing 10 drones, this is like a 12-15 minute no rush kind of game.
Yeah.
First, Ultras are building to deal with whatever is on the ground here for Zoun. Most importantly, that's going to be disruptors and high templars, so that the air forces out of BYUL can reign supreme. Yeah, obviously at this stage of the game, there's also a bit of other stuff still on the ground, which Ultras are getting in. Oh, snipe on the War Prism there. No more reinforcements to this army. And yeah, we're heading into the first bigger fight of this game here. Zoun trying to lay siege on this base up in the north.
Alright, here we go. Both players are maxed out. This time around though, use a lot of spores to help tank some of those interceptors. But is it going to be enough? Oh, a huge fungal though on those void rays, and combine them with the parasitic bomb, and those void rays evaporate absolutely so quickly. And that is the engagement that BYUL wanted to have in the last game. Now he is the one that's going to push this army back. Of course, there's still that lack of creep. I wish that creep was still much forward here on the top side. But at the very least, he does have a great engagement compared to last game.
Pretty good fight here out of BYUL. Very crucial to this was a couple of infestors added on in the background, adding on those microbial shrouds so that the queens can actually deal a whole lot of damage and survive through all of this. And then, yeah, Ultralists were just in time to deal with everything on the ground, and now BYUL has the freedom to, for the first time in this game, go around the map with the Corruptor flock here, trying to look for buildings, maybe trying to spray them down. Zoun here, while he is remixed again, we do see he's remixing on a whole bunch of Zealots, and if these Zealots don't get anything done, like run by wise or harassment wise, they're going to be dead supply, because if there are like 2 or 3 Ultralists in the fight, 20 Zealots are not going to be great against that. So right now Zoun with a bit of a weaker army, 13 Zealots and 9 Stalkers still. It's not what you want to have against like Ultralisk Brute Lords. So I guess there are no Brute Lords yet, so
yeah, I mean,
BYUL now moving out onto the map, looking for an engagement himself, looking for a siege position. I really think he should add on some Brute Lords. He does have a greater Spire, and Brute Lords would put a bunch of pressure and a bigger sieging capability, but he just runs his Ultralisk in, Microbial Shroud's going down to keep these Ultras alive for a little bit longer, and they do manage to get out of there, and now the Corruptors are engaging onto the prismatically aligned Voidwings, but they're sniping them down one by one. Carriers now being sniped. There are a ton of Stalkers now blinking underneath, but the Ultras and Queens are taking care of that. The Corruptors reigning supreme in the air, and now the air army out of Zoun has completely been taken care of, and well, Zoun, his response is just to completely swap into a ground army here, trying to catch BYUL off guard. Yeah, BYUL really just needs these Ultralists to finish up here to deal with a massive ground switch out of Zoun.
yeah, you do see this sometimes coming out of Protoss, where they just rely on the Zerg to overcompensate against the air attack by going for mass Corruptors. However, the weakness of Corruptors is that they do not attack onto the ground, and so looks like Zoun is going to go ahead and take advantage of this, at least for the next couple of seconds before those Ultralists does come out. And another hatchery will go down on the right side. So yeah, hatcheries going down left and right for BYUL. However, BYUL still does have a very scary army there.
This is what Brute Lords would have been nice, right? If there were Brute Lords in that army, this ground force would have never been able to take the engagement like this and to just counter pounce onto that north side base there. But yeah, BYUL does now figure out that Brute Lords are the answers, but they are morphing quite far forward, and if Zoun catches wind of that, he might be able to pounce onto them, but nope, Ultralisks are there to protect.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with this gateway switch, I mean, there is a timer, a limited time on this for this to work. Once the Zerg, you know, amasses enough those ground forces, whether it's Ultralisk or whether he masses enough Brood Lords, then they, you know, all those gateway units just kind of really becomes, you know, paperweight. They just get really, you know, it's just not really effective when you go into a head-to-head engagement. So you know, Zoun right now, he really can rely on his mobility of these units, this ground force, until BYUL, you know, of course, has enough maybe spine crawlers to defend his bases, or Brood Lords, or Ultralists, or Banelings. So yeah, Zoun is going to have to do some significant damage in the next couple of minutes.
The Brute Lord count is rising here. BYUL keeps morphing these Brute Lords like rather far forward, offering Zoun opportunities to maybe pounce on them. But yeah, the Brute Lord count is really what the anchor here for BYUL. If in this previous fight, if they had only traded armies, BYUL would have been in a super good position here. But now with the bases in the north being taken out, and a lot of drones being lost as well, BYUL previously was on 80-something drones as well, and now he's down to 55. Well, if they had only traded armies and no economy damage was done, this would be looking rather marvelous here for BYUL. But now he's he's a bit stuck on the defenses. I want to say, but on the other side of the map, he just goes for the counter attack with the Brute Lords, and this is a very curious choice. And yeah, he's just forced to tap out here. That was not the way to go. He just needed to turtle up there. Instead, he tried to go on the counter offensive and defend the other side of the map with half of his army, and that was not the play there.